Today's number 7 most urgent vulnerability on the ranked list is CVE 2026-34908, affecting UI UniFi OS, specifically UI/UniFi_OS_server. And this one earns the runtime because it combines 3 signals defenders should not ignore: a perfect CVSS 10.0, CISA Known Exploited Vulnerabilities status, and an EPSS percentile of 0.82507. This is the Daily Ranked CVE Brief, What to Patch First, ranked by real exploitation signal from CISA KEV, first EPSS, and CVSS every day. The short version: according to NVD, a malicious actor with access to the network could exploit improper access control in UniFi OS devices to make unauthorized changes to the system. If UniFi OS is part of how you run network infrastructure, this is not a theoretical cleanup item. This is a patch and verify now item. CVE 2026-34908 is described as an improper access control vulnerability in UniFi OS devices. The weakness category is CVE-284, which is the broad class for improper access control. In plain English, access control is the part of a system that decides who is allowed to do what. A healthy system should distinguish between a user who is merely on the network, a user who is authenticated, and an administrator who is allowed to change sensitive settings. When access control is flawed, the system may accept an action that should have been blocked. For this CVE, the official NVD description says a malicious actor with access to the network could make unauthorized changes to the system. We are staying defensive here: no exploit steps, no payloads, no proof of concept walkthrough. The important point is that the exposed security boundary is authorization, not just availability. Verdict: this is a maximum severity flaw because it is remotely reachable on the network and does not require the attacker to already have an account or trick a user. That is the core of the CVSS vector: network attack vector, low attack complexity, no privileges required, and no user interaction required. For defenders, those first conditions matter more than memorizing every letter in the vector. They mean exposure can begin anywhere an attacker has network path to the affected UniFi OS device, and the attack does not depend on a phishing click or an existing login. The score also reflects high impact to confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But the most operationally important takeaway is simpler: if an affected device is reachable from untrusted or broadly accessible networks, the barrier to abuse is low. The reason this CVE ranks so high today is not just the perfect score. CISA lists CVE 2026-34908 in the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. CAD status is a major real-world signal because it means exploitation has been observed, not merely predicted from a lab scenario. The EPSS percentile is also elevated at 0.82507, which places it high relative to other vulnerabilities in exploit likelihood ranking. EPSS percentile is not the same as saying there is an 82% chance you will be hit tomorrow. But combined with KEV and CVSS 10.0, it supports the same conclusion. Prioritize this ahead of routine patching. The business risk is unauthorized change to UniFi OS systems. Depending on how a device is used in an environment, unauthorized changes can affect administration, network behavior, security posture, and trust in configuration state. Conceptually, the path starts with reachability. The NVD wording is important. A malicious actor with access to the network could exploit the issue. That does not necessarily mean the public internet in every environment. It can mean any network segment where an untrusted user, compromised endpoint, guest device, partner connection, or overly broad internal access can reach the affected UniFi OS service. From a defensive view, the management plane is the asset to protect. Attackers look for systems where administrative or configuration functions are reachable, then try to cross the line between being merely present on the network and being allowed to change the system. With CVE-284, the failure is that the system does not enforce the intended permission boundary correctly. So the question for defenders is, who can reach your UniFi OS devices, and is that access limited to the people and systems that truly need it? To determine exposure, start with inventory. Identify UniFi OS devices and any systems running UI/UniFi_OS_server in your environment. Then use the official UI Security Advisory for exact affected and fixed version guidance. Do not guess from memory, and do not rely on a generic asset label alone. Confirm actual product, deployment, and software state against the vendor advisory. Next, map network reachability. Ask whether the management interface or related service is reachable from the internet, from guest or user VLANs, from unmanaged endpoints, from VPN pools, or from third-party network paths. Even if a device is patched, that reachability review is valuable. For a network reachable access control flaw, exposure is not only about version, it is also about who can connect to the service in the first place. The first action is to follow the UI security advisory and apply the vendor's remediation for affected UniFi OS devices. Because this CVE is in CISA KEV and scores 10.0, treat remediation as urgent, not as a normal maintenance backlog item. After patching, harden the exposure. Limit access to management services to trusted administrative networks. Use segmentation so ordinary user devices, guest networks, and unmanaged systems cannot directly reach the management plane. Review administrator accounts and permissions, especially anything that no longer has a business need. Check recent configuration changes and compare them to expected change records. If you maintain configuration backups, make sure they are current and protected. The goal is not only to remove the vulnerable condition, but also to reduce the blast radius if a similar management plane issue appears later. Detection should focus on unauthorized change and abnormal management access. Start by defining normal. Management connections should come from known administrator locations or controlled admin networks, during expected windows, tied to known accounts and approved work. Then, look for deviations. Review logs for configuration changes outside maintenance windows, changes without a matching ticket or administrator action, new or modified administrative access, and management traffic from unusual source networks. Watch for unexpected device restarts, unexplained service behavior changes, or network behavior that no longer matches your intended configuration. If your logging stack supports it, correlate management access, authentication events, configuration changes, and network source information together. A single log line may not prove compromise, but a configuration change from an unusual source with no corresponding approved admin activity is exactly the kind of signal that deserves rapid investigation. Bottom line, CVE 2026-34908 is today's number 7 on our top 10 because it combines maximum technical severity with known exploitation. It affects UI UniFi OS, maps to CVE-284 improper access control, and the documented impact is unauthorized system changes by a malicious actor with network access. Your defensive priorities are straightforward. Confirm whether you run the affected product, follow the vendor advisory for exact remediation, restrict who can reach management services, and review logs and configuration history for signs of unauthorized change. If this brief helped you decide what to patch first, subscribe to the Daily Ranked CVE Brief. We rank the day's vulnerabilities by real exploitation signal, CISA KEV, first EPSS, and CVSS, so defenders can focus on the issues that matter most.